Okay, my outstandingly wonderful friends, today we are going to talk about health, and specifically the health related to autism and neurodegenerative conditions, which means, nerve functions and all kinds of things that control your body, motion, vision, hearing, all of that stuff in the nervous system. And that means wiring. Basically, it's wiring. And what are we going to be ended up talking about? And I'm going to show you in a second. It's going to be fabulous. You're going to love it. Multipolar neurons. It's the most common type of neuron, which means it's like a little computer spot. Each multipolar neuron contains one axon, which is one wire, and multiple dendrites, which are little things coming out of that wire, which are like additional connections from one central wire. Now, they can be found in central nervous system, brain, spinal cord, all these areas. Multipolar neuron in the cerebellum has many branching dendrites, but only one axon. Now, let's take a look at the actual pictures of these things, and then I am going to show you what they represent in the wiring. They're literally identical to wiring. All right, this is what we're just talking about. These are the dendrites. What you have here is, this is the axon they're talking about. That is the wire. That's that main wire. It's a main wire. And out of that wire, in this is what's called category 5 communication line wire. And one is a send and one is a receive. So you send out a signal and you receive one back to the processor. Identical to this, an axon. Because it comes like this, you see it? That's the axon. And then at the end, you have either this end or that end. It doesn't matter. They both do basically the same thing. You have one cable that transfers all kinds of signals. Now, this not only has one send and receive, it has 4 of them. They call it category 5. And so you can do what they call multiplexing, where you have many signals coming in, they mix together at the end and so forth, which is what you have. You have eyeballs and your hands and your fingers and your taste and your ears, and everything else has to work in one harmonious package. Now, what happens here? What if I cut that? What if I cut right into that and I shorted these wires together? That's what's happening with autism. That's what's happening with neurodegenerative orders. And why would that happen? These myelin sheaths, they're called myelin sheaths. I'm going to show them to you in a second. Maybe I already did. I don't even know. But if I didn't, I will show them to you. And what they are is nothing more than the insulation that's on wires. And then you're going to have other ones that have a lot of insulation. And then they also have, like this is for video. And that's why it has this braided copper wire to keep the signal really contained in there and not allow any electrons to interfere. These you can bounce electrons into them, doesn't matter, because all they're doing is sending. This is a power signal. Power in, power, plus or minus. This is the video. This is called coaxial cable. This is data wire, data line. This has very little power, but it has a lot of information. This has 100% power, no information other than you got power or no power. These are going, you see all these little lights flashing and all over the place. This one here is a video receiver, so any bounces in the transmission of the power are received in here, and that bounce and that is so tiny that we can have all these different colors and things. That's what video does. Now, because it's so dependent upon being very, very confined and not being allowed to be interfered with, like these don't matter. These, that's why they're twisted. You really can't. These are so low in power that you don't really get a whole lot of interference in them. Anyway, this gets a little complicated, but trust me, you need insulation of extreme in certain areas. See how thick that insulation is? And then you have it bound by copper, which is nothing more than a confinement to keep that signal inside there. That's just a whole nother idea. This is the axon. These are the one side or the other, doesn't matter. We're worried about short and through here. Now, I am going to show you, this guy did an absolutely fabulous job. Let's see if we can find out who we got here. This is, well, actually, this is on Wikipedia, but it's absolutely fabulous. This shows, and you can look up all these different things, the Golgi apparatus, the nucleus, and of course they all have nucleus. A nucleus means it's the brain of this particular cell. So this has its own processor built in, and then that sends it to the main processor. So you've got a whole lot of levels of authority and response. Now, so that's the main axon that we're going to be talking about. And then we're going to talk about how it gets destroyed. So this is the myelin sheath. Now, I've demonstrated, I think, very well that bacteria in membrane, that's nothing more than a membrane-bound bacteria. We want to know what lives in there. What is this? What kind of membrane is this? What does it look like? And we're going to see that in a second. What is the occupants of these membranes? Is this myelin different in different types of nerves? Is it different in your fingers than it is in your tongue? You know, because you're going to be dealing with different environments. And then they've got all these different things that they're talking about in here. These are little bits and pieces that they know are here, but I'm not sure they know exactly what they do or how to deal with them. Now, this is showing all the different areas in the brain where they call it white matter and gray matter and so forth. Now, this gets a little deeper. Now you're into the microtubules and the myelin sheath. That's myelin sheath. It's right there. That's it. That's it right there. That's it. Only this has one wire coming out. This has a ton of little wires. They call them microtubules. And they come into here and do whatever they do inside of there. And the nucleus says what it's got to do. And it sends out all these kind of things to these dendritic spikes to do whatever it tells them to do. I mean, it's just a lot. It's a complicated system here. But this is a cross section. This is like taking this and cutting it right across here. There's all your. That's it. That's it right there. I mean, it doesn't get any clearer than that. That's the axon. And that's where your nerve signal is coming. And I show you here, one is the axon. That's the wire. 2 is the nucleus. It's over here. 3 is Schwann cells. Now the Schwann cells, I got a feeling, are the source of the bacteria. I think I'm going to look into those. Myelin sheath is the whole shooting match here. Wrapped right around here. That's the myelin sheath. That's the insulation. 5 is the neurolemma, which is outside of here, which is another layer of insulation. So they really have 2 layers of insulation, basically like this. So what's being attacked? Is it this one? Is it that one? Is it this? Something's going on in here that is allowing this to short out. That's my take, and we could do some basic research. I don't know if it's been done yet. I don't think it has. Now, this is the synapse. And what is the synapse? It means where this plugs in and stops at one point and has to connect to another area. And it's just shooting its signals across there probably in our body, they are light signals, and they appear to be, because they talk about colors down here. This is very, very, very well done, whoever did this research. See, and here's the light colors. And there's 3 different lights. There's the blue, green, red. And I showed this in my light research. Well, I'm going to show you something. The difference in the power between here and the green and the red. The blue, I'm not 100% sure of because I only have a couple of shots of the blue. But anyway, here goes. That I don't know what that is. That's the end of it. Now, let's see about the light. But don't forget, this is the key right here. That's the key. That's the insulation. We need to do research on what is this made of, what's that made of, what's these things, the chemistry, what is a diseased person have in that situation? Is it only in one area? Is it at the vagus nerve? Is it the tips of the vagus nerve? Is it at the up above the blood-brain barrier? Something shorting out. I've been doing this stuff a long time. I did this field work many, many, many years, understanding when things don't work right. That was my job. I was a field engineer, and I was good at it. And I fixed a lot of stuff. And I went through the phase when everything was just being developed, electronics, and coming out into the workplace where everything was static and all kind of problems we had. Whoa. And I was one of the first ones to do all this stuff. And I one of the first ones. I worked on stuff that came out. It was 17 volts instead of 5 volts. They came out when they put them in the cold. They exploded. The cold. When you get down to 30 degrees versus 70 degrees, I think I had mapped it out. It was almost 5, or let's say at least 3 times as much current passed through there because there was no electrons in there to stop the current from flowing through. When you get something cold, it's removing electrons. That's just a whole nother story. But this is my background. I understand it. I'd love to work with somebody that has the ability to do the research to understand what are we looking at, what's the chemistry, what's the invasion, what is the process to reverse it. That's what I like to see. All right, they were talking about colors, the red, green, and blue. You can see the red has very little power. The green is extremely powerful. The blue is even more powerful than that. Now, we can see green separating into photons, and we can see red separating into photons. I haven't seen the blue. That doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but this is what these photons look like. They look just like that, a black and a white ball and a black and a white ball. They're 2 bar magnets back to back. When they concuss, the forward-leading white ball explodes with power and makes it spin and wobble. That is literally an electron neutrino, and when it hits and concusses, it creates electron showers, which are white floods of particles. The black balls, I'm telling you right now, that's dark matter. They call them muons, bosons, call them anything you want. All they do is suck the white balls back into them. And I could prove what I'm saying. This is not a tiniest bit of guess. And that's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for that black ball, the muon, and they're looking for the electron showers. That's exactly what I show. They two were attached together until they concussed. And when they concussed, they did this. They split. The white balls turned into electron showers, exactly what CERN's looking for, and the black balls just rolled away as the muons. Now, instantaneously, the black balls are grabbing back the white balls. You see it? I believe there's a ton more of the black ones around because they fill in the spaces. The white ones want to be away from each other. The black ones want everybody to be hugged up together. They'll sit right on top of each other, couldn't care less. The white balls get away from me. That's why they cause this explosion. And that's what creates these interference patterns. This is not like anything special. This is, I don't want you next to me, and this guy says, I don't want you next to me. He says, well, all right, will you stay on your side, I'll stay on my side. That's what creates these interference patterns. And down the middle, they sort of just all mix together. There's not much you can do about that. But when they get to the sides, they create these little patterns. Now, until you understand electron flood theory, you cannot understand anything. That's why everything is such a mystery. All right, you saw the red, and maybe I showed you the green, maybe not. This is the red laser pulse. Now, it's just pulse, pulse, pulse. Well, behind that pulse is the particle way back here, which is that particle that I showed before, that black and white particle. Now, this is red laser. You have red, green, and blue. The blue is this, and the blue is so powerful that I'm not sure we can discriminate between the polarities here as the other one. But you can see there's a difference between here and up here. It's compressed up here, and it's obviously expanded down here. So either it's accelerating or slowing down, one or the other. And that is the same particle as we're seeing here just prior to concussing. And this is the wave which precedes the particle. That little particle is way back here, but it has a magnetism around it, just like magnets. You take two magnets and push them together, you can feel they're bouncing. So you have a particle, and then you have a wave in front of it. I push, it's a wave that tries to push that one away. It's always push to shove. That's the new term. I coined it, push to shove. This one pushes, they shove back. That's all it is. When that happens, you have energy. You have explosion. You have concussion. You have push to shove. Now, this whole area is being excited. This is what's called reverse EMF. You see, it's coming back. That's because it concusses here and bounces back at these. There's more of these coming through the air. You don't even see them. You don't see them, but obviously they're there because now they're being concussed backwards. They're everywhere. That's coming, the light particles coming from the laser. We are focusing on, Rod Warren did this, and I don't know how he did it. Him and Fabian Boulez did the enhancements of these, but absolutely phenomenal, phenomenal, phenomenal work. This from here to here, where the Higgs fields are created, is exactly 100% electrons and nothing, no muons. Right there, that is electrons. Then the black ones come back in, the muons attached back here. If we can get into that power source, I think we have increased the value of the particle that was here hundreds of times. And they say 200. I'll go along with that. I can live with that. But we can damn sure see that there is a hell of a lot more energy here than there was here. I mean, you'd have to be insane not to understand that. And this would never have increased had we not put it through a Venturi. It would have stayed like this. You'd still have this little concussion in front, and you'd still have glowing particles in front, which are all the gas particles have electrons as well. These are nothing more than that bar magnet looking thing coming through here, two bar magnets saying, get out of the way, get out of the way, get out of the way. And everybody says, whoa, 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 whoa. And then push to shove, these light up, only this one here lights up a lot more than these. Simple as that. And this one here is the creme de la creme of light. What is that? I have no idea. I can tell you one thing, that particle there was unique to what I had seen, and I worked with Rod for years. 6 years, 7 years ago we started with this. And I'm still working with him now, and he still sends me stuff, just knocks my socks off. But, you know, how many times can you show it? But that is, this was a reverse spinning particle as far as I can determine. And then as it entered the field of real particles coming out of the Venturi, and it had to do something, it created this. Because when you come out of the Venturi, and it went through the Venturi, because I could see it come out as a white particle, but it was not, out here it didn't create the Higgs fields, it created like a white particle. But then I found this, and I believe it is that white particle right here that concussed. Now let's go look at that. Where was it? All right, that's the white particle right there. Now, coming out of here, you see these white sprits, all that, there's nothing but electrons there. That's where we got to tap, right there. And then they can come back and create their Higgs fields later. That's fine. But if we can get to that, we've got some power. That's the one that I think created that reverse spinner. Anyway, there's a lot to look at in every realm. Okay, I'm sorry I got off on that electron flood theory stuff, but that is huge. That's before you can understand anything, you have to understand that. So I am sorry, but I'm not sorry. Now I'm going to go back in. I'm sure I'm going to go back over all kinds of stuff I already went over, but it can't hurt to go back over it again, or you can just go and do whatever you want. All right, I love you. I'm going to go back into it again, and I'm going to reintroduce myself, and we're going to start to look at this one more time to be sure, hopefully, that we have no lingering questions. If you do, I'm certainly able to answer them. I don't know how to do this in what kind of forum. I need some kind of a forum to be able to address multiple audiences at one time, not just one or two people, because I just can't do it. And people are upset at me because I'm not answering, I'm not doing, I was going to shut off all comments and everything. I can't do it. I just can't do it. I need somebody to do some research for me, so that I could do my research and then present it in an open format where people that actually do the chemistry and the electronic research can validate or invalidate what I say. It's not a big mystery here. But we need to know, what is this myelin consist? Anyway, I'll go back into it, I'm sure. Here we go. Okay, my wonderful friends, this is Roger Spur, Mud Fossil University, speaking with my extremely serious voice today because I have been in contact with Marguerite O'Reilly we did some work for years now. We've been working on her son and the autism, and he was severely affected by autism, and he's had some pretty good positive results. Now, I study chemistry, I'm sort of a science fanatic, let's put it that way. It's just, you have to understand everything or you can't understand anything. So you have to start with the atomic structure of everything, and then how does electrons move? How does light move? How does heat move? What is energy? How come the body moves all these things through it? And why do some people shake like this, and can't move their arms right, and can't get control over their body, and can't function in speech, and all kinds of things? And that is related to the central nervous system. Just like a wiring in a computer. That's why I'm showing you what wiring is and what power does and what signals are sent out, which are literally the commands that are sent from a central processor through literally wires, only they are made of what they call nerve fibers, coated by the same sort of stuff this is. Only they're coated by myelin. You see this? What is myelin? Myelin is nothing more than an insulator around the wires. If those wires touch, you short out. Well, what's going to happen in your body? Exactly the same thing. What is that stuff made of? This is where I come in. This is my realm right here. This is where I live. This is my whole life. I'm not kidding you. That's just where I live right now. That's it for me. How does this work? I see everything. I see everything now, and I wonder, why does that do that way? Why does one guy have this happen to him, the other guy doesn't? Why does the heat cause this to happen? Why does cooling cause that to happen? I mean, what is it? And I go on and on and on. Now, I do, though, understand this process. Why we are being invaded is because we don't have the bacteria in our bodies to create these myelin sheaths and keep them healthy. The bacteria are the housekeepers. They clean, they sweep, they open the doors, they're gatekeepers, they do everything at the border of you, where you live on this side, and the rest of the world that wants to invade you. All right, listen to me carefully, because there is a layer on everything. It's called a membrane. This myelin sheath is nothing more than a membrane. And inside that membrane is these wiring bits that conduct literally electricity. Everything there is nothing more than electrons pushing and shoving. Now, how they make it all work out here, I'm not sure. How, that's really, really, really deep when you try to understand thoughts and feelings and emotions. That is as deep as you get. But I can understand how that happens, and I can understand why I can make that happen and this and that. But emotions, that's a little past. I mean, I got them. I can tell you that. let's just take a step back for a minute and think about what in a computer happens, because it's really virtually identical, literally identical. They send signals, the single signals execute a command. The command has to be done. Normally in advanced computer systems, you get a return signal that says, all right, I did what you want me to do. Is there anything else you need? No, you're good. I see whatever I sent you did whatever I wanted it to do, and now I have received that feeling or that visual or that noise or whatever it is that I wanted to get back to say that my signal was understood, executed, commanded, successful, case is closed. Now, let's take this to what this myelin is, because I go, this is my realm, like I said. What does this stuff do? What is this insulation? Why? I'm going to show you something about computer signals. You see this? This was called Category 5, Cat 5, they called it. And these are twisted pairs. There's 2 wires in there. You see this? And they're twisted around, around. Well, why is that? Because as the electricity goes, it has to bump back and forth so that it can keep itself from interfering with its, if they ran parallel, because you've got a send and a receive. So your send sends out a signal, your receive comes back. If you've got push to shove, because it can feel it even outside the wires, this insulation, it can feel the push and the shove of magnetism flowing through wires. That's nothing more than electrons. So if it circles in a circle, they sort of don't interfere with each other and cause interference. That's what it is. It's interference. So you got wires in the inside, insulation, twisting so that as they go, they sort of wiggle down a wire and they wiggle back to coming back. So that's how Cat 5 works. There's no power here. Those are send and receive signals. Now you got video cable. Because this one here is just send and receive. I want to send something down to my muscles. I want to send something down to somewhere else. These are like your vagus nerve. Now, coming off the vagus nerve, you need power to do certain things. Like that requires power. So you have to have something to feed power into the muscles. Now, that is done by the blood. The blood literally brings like gasoline, only it's oxygen and glucose and the nutrients that make the muscles that are in here do that. Now, in the case of your eyeballs, this sends signals to your eyes to go this way and that way and up and down and your iris and so forth. But you need to get back a signal from your eyeball that is a light signal. Now, that has to really be isolated from everything else. So, and this is a video cable, same thing, it's virtually identical. This is where the signal comes back, but because it's so magnetically it pulsates magnetically, these video signals, they're very, very, they interact with other molecules that are around and with our electrons. So what do you have to do to stop that from interfering with the signal that we want to be clean? We put a thick insulation, not like this thin one, very thick. Then we put a braided copper wire around it. You say, oh, braided. Why'd you say that, Roger? Well, I said braided because every surface, in electron flood theory, you have to understand electron flood theory. Every surface is coated with electrons. Every single surface. So as you push, it shoves back. It's called push to shove. So if every surface, if you had just like a foil here, you'd only have one surface. Here you got a bazillion surfaces overlapping every other surface. You see that? That's why they braid it. Now, and this is what's called coaxial, and that's for video. Now, this is basically what happens in autism. If we short through this, they may scream or bite their lips or something. I don't know what you would do if the power hit. If the signals, they could see things that aren't even there because the signals are getting crossed. They can, all kind of stimming and all kinds of interference if you're shorting out between these wires. Now, let's talk about this, because now we're going to get down to where the research has to be done. I'm not just telling you, okay, here's the problem. No, we know there's a problem. What's the solution? That's what I want. Let's see if we can figure one out. All right, here's the deal. This myelin that we're going to be looking at in a minute is a glycolipid called galactoborside. Now, I briefly had an interaction with Dr. Stephanie Seneff. I believe she's with MIT. And she was looking at, well, she's the one backing up this glyphosate lawsuit against the manufacturer Roundup. They make that weed killer, and she's saying that this, and I think it's got something to do with the same chemistry here. Same chemistry. It's glyphosate, it's glycolipid, and this is the name of the, it's like a galactocereboside. Normally when you ever see anything with a side on the end, it means it's a toxin. Now, let's see what it says here. This is the chemistry of this particular sheathing of the myelin. There's nothing about it here really to talk about. So let's just go with myelin. Let's talk about the myelin, because the myelin is composed of this particular chemistry. Now let's just look at images for myelin. All right, now you see it's exactly like the wires I showed you, identical. This, I want to see some electron microscope shots. If we could see that well, what we need is the chemistry done, and to look at all the different areas in the body and see what is the coating of that sheathing, what lives in there, what is a healthy living body got in that myelin, because I know that's shorting out. In my mind, I can just visualize what's going on, and it is down through the vagus nerve, and it's either somewhere up in the cranial area, I'm not sure, it could be anywhere. But we know that we had some very, very positive results from some very, very minor chemistry invasion, just a little bit of sulfur and silicates. And Marguerite is the one that knows more about this than I do, because she was frontline with her son John, and he responded quite well. It was we used probiotics, and there's a special brand, I won't name it here, but it should. There's certain probiotics, if you don't have them in your body, you cannot digest the food. Then either you don't have the mucus, or you don't have the bacteria in you to fight back against these invaders, which are like almost like little living things that try to come in and get you. You need to have chemistry go out and kill those. You also need mucosal bacteria that create slime to keep your intestines and everything as a barrier. You know, I got a lot of research on this, and Margarita does too. She's the one that should be the one that is frontline on this, because all I did was make a couple of recommendations. I asked her about her son. How's his digestive system work? Oh, it's terrible. I said, well, there you go. I said, well, let's get that under control. And as soon as we had that, working a lot better, every time it got better and better, he got better and better. So what does that tell you? That's telling me that these little bacterial communities are not completely flushed in the system. And I'm sure he has some kind of still symptoms, I'm sure. Because he was really on a very, very severe end of the spectrum, where they didn't even want him to participate in a autism study because he was too far out of it. They said there's no hope. And I said, no, of course there's hope. We'll figure this out. And we did. And now I guess he's one of the leaders of the whole thing. And Marguerite actually went to Harvard and took courses about organelles and about these internal structures of the cell inside these cell membranes that create these enzymes that do these jobs. See, she's willing to do what it takes to understand what needs to be done, and that is, I found, unusual. I have found that it's there's a denialist mentality now that says, "Oh, no, you don't know what you're doing because you don't have a whole batch of letters behind your name." And I led my life doing things. Trust me, I was very successful. I did all of the top end stuff. Believe me, I know what I'm talking about. So we're at a point here. We need to do some research. We need to look at the chemistry. We need to what is invaded. Is it broken through? Are they shorted out? Is there no slime on there? There's got to be a reason. There's a reason. And we know for a fact that there's a lot of it to do with bacteria just taking these off-the-shelf probiotics. Simple as that. Just get started. But if we don't know what all the bacterial communities are, where they live and what they should be, and then when we know a kid has all kinds of this happening, or he's got a voice problem, or his eyes start rolling around in circles, well, all of those are different bacterial communities. And if we can identify which one is which and how to intervene and put it back in there, this kid might go home and his whole life will be fine. And that, trust me, John Jr. With Marguerite, all I could do is think of how stressful that situation would be for both people, for everybody. Life is hard enough as it is. You don't need that if you can get around it. And I think we can get around it with and not do it with invasive chemistry and things that just I don't know what they want to do with autism now. I've sort of stepped out of that loop, But I was pretty impressed with Marguerite and her tenacity to this to move this forward. And somebody's got to stand behind her and help her. I can't do it. I really have very little voice anywhere, to be perfectly honest with you. So I have no influence, let me put it that way. And people that have these kids, I feel terrible, because there's nothing I can do other than just do what I can do, and that's just very little. But this really offers a lot of hope, and I'm 100% willing to step in and speak about my research, whether that's anybody's going to listen or not, I don't know. But we've had some pretty good results. And I'm telling you right now, bacteria slimes everything. And if you don't have the slime, you're going to short out. Just like if you cut through this wire and it touches the other wire, it's going to short out. Obviously, whatever you were sending is going to be jumbled or not get there. Thank you.